Hey guys, Spencer here, and welcome back to part 3 of the Ultra Scale Guide for Surplus Fund and State Fund Businesses. And in this video, you're going to get exactly what is promised by the thumbnail and by the title, which is the overall strategy and basically how to hire virtual assistants to work for you in your business so you can scale and grow rapidly very, very, very inexpensively. Now, of course, I want to make a disclaimer. I'm not the all-knowing god of surplus funds. And the reason why I feel qualified to make this video is because in our high-level mastermind program called Scale Mastery, we've helped a ton of people scale their business using virtual assistants successfully. One of our students now is at 150 grand a month. We've got students doing 50 grand a month and plus. We got 20 grand a month and plus. So I feel really qualified because of their success. And I want to make this clear, this is not a pitch video. You actually can't buy Scale Mastery on the internet. You actually have to talk to us first. We don't just sell it. But if you're interested in that and getting one-on-one help literally directly from me and from my business partner, David, as well as getting access to the deep inside strategies that we use, and you think that you'd be a good fit for Scale Mastery, click the link down below, watch that short 15-minute training, kind of talks about what Scale Mastery is and what it involves completely for free, and then book a free call with my right-hand guy, John. And John will work with you. If he thinks it's a good fit, he'll say, hey, Scale Mastery might be the right thing for you, and he'll offer it to you. If not, he'll give you a plan to scale, and everyone will walk away happy. So hopefully that makes sense. With that being said, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and let's jump right into it. All right, so in this video, we're going to be talking about virtual assistants, which I'm going to just refer to as VAs, okay? So anytime I say VA, just think virtual assistants. And this is, one of the few major things you have to accomplish in order to be able to scale, okay? And by scale, I mean, $20,000 a month plus, okay? If you're doing that consistently in surplus funds, $20,000 is not that scaled, but, you're on your path to really scaling up, okay? Now, some of the other strategies you need to talk about, too, is automated marketing, which I did in part 2. So if you haven't watched that video, go back and watch part 2 because this is not really going to be helpful to you until you watch that one. But also on top of that, numbers work 1, 2, 3, not 3, 2, 1. So go back, watch part 1, watch part 2, and then watch this video. And make sure you stay to the end because you want to make sure that you really understand the strategy and you don't half-ass it. Because a lot of people with VAs, they understand part of it because they don't, finish complete videos and finish the whole task. And then they don't do it right, and then they end up training the wrong person, and it's this giant nightmare that I'll talk about in a second. So make sure you finish this video as well. And with that being said, I want to start by talking about why you would even want a virtual assistant. Well, there's a few reasons why. Number one is it's inexpensive or cheap, labor, right? So you can get things done for very inexpensively. Number two is it allows you to start building a team and start building an actual company very, inexpensively again. So it kind of goes back to that cheap labor. But the main point with this one is this idea of a cash flow quadrant. Now, I talked about this in the first video, but if you'll remember, there's 4 quadrants. There's the employee quadrant. I call it the surplus fund quadrant, but it's the self-employed quadrant. There's the business, or the what's called the big business quadrant, and then there's the investor quadrant. And a lot of people with surplus funds, they go from the E to the S, which is great, right? But they end up here doing all the work themselves. Well, what we want to do is we want to go from the S to the B. And so employees is one of the ways to do that. And VAs is one of the cheapest ways to get employees, right? So it allows us to transition over here without spending a ton of money and signing up to pay someone, several $1,000s a month, okay? Now, with that said, what are some of the major things that people do that are incorrect with virtual assistants? So I'm going to put major, bad practices. I'm going to just put P for practice. Major bad, I'm going to put PRAC, practices, okay? Well, some of the major bad practices that people do with hiring a virtual assistant is they don't have a really good hiring process. So they're just like, hey, we need someone. Let's just post an application online on some random website. Hope that we get the right person, and just kind of go from there. And what often happens is that they think they get the right person, then they bring them on, and they don't even know how to train them. So it's kind of the next thing. They don't know how to onboard. And by onboard, it means like, hey, we hired someone, but how do we get them to get up to speed with us so that they're working on the same page as me, right? Or other people, if you have other people in your company already. So a lot of people fail at this part too, the onboarding and training part. A lot of people fail at the hiring part, and then they fail at managing them. So they're like, hey, do this thing, and then they don't know how to, manage them to see if they're actually doing those things. And sometimes that's easier than said than actually done. But at the end of the day here, You know, I mean, this is like the trifecta of bad things to do. So they have no hiring process, so they hire the wrong person. Then they onboard them incorrectly, so the person has no idea what the hell they're doing. And then they don't know how to manage them. So then they're just kind of like, hey, figure it out. And they just let them out. And this is the ultimate trifecta for a horrible experience with VAs. And you guys would, first of all, be shocked at some of the stories that I hear on a daily basis for people that are trying to hire their own VA and don't know how to do this stuff. But second of all, this actually happened to me. So when I first started hiring VAs, I hired this gal. Her name was Ruby. And I brought her in. I felt like she was a good fit, didn't know how to hire, just picked her because her resume looked decent, right? Hired her, spent a month training her, and then I got lucky because I didn't even get to fail at managing her. After the onboarding, I paid her $500 for that month or whatever it was. I don't remember exactly how much it was. And then she just said, all right, well, see you later. I'm out of here, right? So now I just spent a month of my life training someone, spending 3-4 hours a day training someone. That's time I could have been spent on working on the business and getting deals. So I actually lost money, right? My business declined a little bit because I was trying to train this person. And then, you know, fast forward, then they just leave anyway. So what was even the point, right? And this, again, is the trifecta. This is the recipe for a horrible experience. I hear about this over and over and over again. So in this video, we're going to be talking about how to have a good managing process, how to have a good onboarding process, and how to have a good hiring process, okay? So hopefully that will all make sense. So the first thing that we're going to cover is hiring, right? How do we get a virtual assistant? And you have to understand hiring comes down to two things. It comes down to finding A players and then putting them in the right place, okay? You know, I always like to use this analogy for you guys that are basketball fans, or most people have heard of Shaquille O'Neal or Shaq, obviously. And Shaq was an amazing Hall of Fame basketball player. He played for the Lakers, played even for the Celtics, played for the Cleveland Cavaliers, played for a bunch of teams, right? The Magic, the Heat, played for like 7 teams, okay? And he won, I think, 4 championships, right? And if you don't know, Shaq is a massive guy. He's like 7'1", like 300 pounds, and 300 pounds probably light, okay? Like he's huge. He's a big guy. And so he just dominated at his position in basketball. But now imagine, let's say you took him and you traded him with Kobe. So you had Kobe, rest in peace, playing Shaq's position at, 6'5", 6'6", however tall Kobe was. And you have Shaq playing, Kobe's position, trying to dribble the ball up and shoot threes and all that. Well, Kobe probably would have been pretty good because he's a pretty skilled guy, but he would have been outsized by like half a foot, right? By everyone. And Shaq would have been trying to bring the ball up, and he would have been a horrible player, okay? It would have been awful. Can't shoot, do nothing, right? So long story short, it's not just about finding A players, right? But it's also about putting them in the right place to succeed. Hopefully that makes sense, right? Hopefully that makes sense that you can't just find the right people. You also have to put them in the right place to succeed, right? But you still have to find the right people, right? And so that's where hiring comes into. How do we find the right people? Well, the first thing that we need to do is we need to have a clear understanding of what we are hiring. Clear understanding. So what position are we hiring for? Are we looking for someone to take phone calls? Oh, and I know my handwriting's bad, but just excuse me there. Are we looking for someone to write emails? Are they doing data work? Are they doing sales? Are they doing marketing? What are they doing? Write out all of their tasks, right? So write out their daily tasks, okay, on paper. And this is going to help you write a job description, but it's also going to help you understand the type of person that you're looking for. Because someone that's going to be really, really good at sales oftentimes is not going to be really, really good at customer support and vice versa. And someone that's really good at back-end data is not going to be good at other things, right? So you need to find the person that matches what you're looking for, right? So once we have a clear understanding of what we're looking for, then we need to construct a solid job application, okay? And what an application looks like is a bullet point list of exactly what tasks they would be doing. That's why this is so important. And then right before the bullet point list, you want to write, some sales copy. You want to get them excited about the position. Hey, you have the opportunity to work with the company. You can expand. You can write some of the benefits that they would have. And at the end of it, you want to put kind of instructions for them on what they need to do to apply. So they need to fill out the application. They need to do what? X, Y, Z. Now, one of the things I would really recommend that they do, that you have everyone do, is have everyone take this test online. It's called 16 Personalities. It's a free test. It takes maybe 15 minutes. And the reason why I do this is a couple reasons. Number one is I'm a big believer in personality tests and trying to understand the way that people are naturally. And so this will give you some insight there. It's a Myers-Briggs personality test if you're familiar with that concept, okay? But the other side of this too is, if you write that out in your instructions and they're not even willing to do that to apply for your job, well, they're probably not very serious and they're probably not the right person. You want someone that's excited to be here, working with you, and excited to move forward. So I would have them take the 16 personalities test as part of the application process, okay? And again, that way you can see what personality type they are, see if they might be a good fit. Obviously, you're not going to make a decision completely on that, but you're going to be looking at that, saying, okay, does this make sense for the position, yes or no? And then you're also going to be saying, okay, well, did they even take the effort in doing it, right? Because if they didn't even do it, well, it probably means they're not going to be the right person. Now, once you've gone through the process of doing the job posting, you then want to set up some interviews, right? So on a typical interview, they should last about anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes. And you're asking questions that, resonate with the position that you're looking for. But you also want to ask basic questions too, like, hey, how soon could you start? What makes you want to, do this position? As well as I like to ask a lot of critical thinking questions. So like one of the questions I like to ask is, why are manhole covers round? And I went silent there because I'm hoping you might come up with a couple answers. And you want to see if they're able to come up with an answer. The truth is there's not really a correct answer. There's multiple correct answers. But I want to see if they're smart enough to figure that out and at least come up with one of the answers, or they just give up and not even try. Are they not good under pressure? Like that's the type of questions that I'm asking, right? So now once you've done that, let's say you've chosen the right person. Now we move into step number 2, which is the onboarding process. That's a really bad O, okay? Really aggressive G. And so what the onboarding process looks like is 2 separate things. So you've got company specific, and then you've got role specific. So company specific is, things that any person that works in your company is going to need to do. So maybe they need to set up a company email, right? Maybe they need to get access to, some sort of a software, right? Like a chat software, or where you get your data from, or something like that everyone in the company would need to do. Okay, payroll, right? Maybe you're setting up payroll for them, which obviously you would need to do that if you're doing, hiring someone inside the U.S., not necessarily as a overseas virtual assistant. And then role specific is things that you need to set up with them that are role specific, okay? So for instance, let's say you're hiring a salesperson, well, you need to get them a sales script, right? You need to, maybe they need to do end of day reports for the sales calls, right? Yada, 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 okay? Now, one of the things that you need to have them do as well is get a deep understanding of surplus funds, because, you might get them a company email address, might get them on the software, and maybe you can explain it. But, if they don't really understand the business, it's going to be tough for them to be successful. And we're in such a unique niche business that, it's really kind of difficult for people to understand it if you don't spend a lot of time working with them. And that's what we recommend. For you guys that are in Service for Mastery, we recommend just sharing that with your virtual assistant, giving that extra login that you get for free to them and allowing them to go through it and, learn it through that program, because that program is going to answer all their questions, right? We've tested it over and over and over again, and we know that that's a great program to learn, right? Versus you sitting there trying to explain everything to them, they're probably going to forget half of it. They can't go back and re-listen to it. It's just not the best way to go about it. And that's actually what we teach our students in Scale Mastery to do is, hey, you get Service for Mastery as part of Scale Mastery. Why don't you have your VAs go through that? You get as many accounts as you want there. And so we've had a ton of people, students of ours, teach and train their employees and train their virtual assistants by just giving them Service for Mastery. So keep that in mind, okay? But you need to get them a deep understanding there. And again, you need to get those role-specific obligations and requirements onboarded as well. And this is pretty much the onboarding process. The worst thing you can do here is not have one, okay? So if your process is really, unprofessional and crappy and just not well put together, and it's just like you're fumbling through it all, it's not going to be good. If you ask any of my team members, you ask them, hey, what was your onboarding like working with Spencer? With the exception of the coaches, because I don't work with the coaches directly, but everyone else I work with directly, they'll tell you, hey, he's got a full process for everything. There's end of day reports. There's this. We're recording everything. We're doing this. We're, keeping track of KPIs. And he explained all of this within a week, right? And we were on board and ready to go. And that's kind of the key to onboarding is make it professional, make it quick to the point to where you're not wasting time. Now, the final step we have is managing the VA. So, you've hired them, you have gotten the right person, hopefully, you've onboarded them, and now they're working. They're doing whatever tasks that you want them to be doing, and now you need to manage these people. And so what does that look like? What does it look like? Well, the first thing is you want to get some sort of a time tracking software. Now, the software that we've used in the past is called Hubstaff, right? So if we go to Hubstaff, it's really inexpensive, okay? I think it's like $14 a month. And the way it works is they download a little widget on their little app on their computer, and then as soon as they clock in, they just click clock in. It starts tracking their screen, okay? Takes screenshots every like 5 minutes or something of what they're doing. And it sends all that data back to you. And so you can see how productive they're being, what they're actually doing, and that they're actually working. You see exactly how many hours they've worked. And I think you can even actually pay them directly on here, although I've personally never done that, okay? See down here, they've got productivity monitoring, so you can see how productive that they've been, reporting, right? So it see, how much, time that they're doing. GPS tracking, you can see like where they're actually working from, online timesheets, and even payroll, right? So it's kind of the one-stop shop for all time tracking. And that's one of the big things you want to do with VA, especially if they're working an hourly position or a salary-based position. To start, you want to get them on here, right? Now, the next thing that you want to do after the time tracking is you want to have, weekly meetings, okay, staff meetings. And even if it's just you and one person, you want to have those weekly meetings. And when you're starting out, you probably want to have daily meetings. Anytime we've brought in a new team member, I work with them daily for a month, right? Or maybe even 2 months, depending on the actual position, where I'm working with them every single day for an hour or 2 hours a day, working with them, training them, teaching them, helping them progress, helping them get successful to a point where, boom, they're at that point. We can drop down to once a week, and I see them once a week on a group call. I see everyone, and we just check in how everyone's doing, make sure everyone's up to KPI, everyone's doing well, and we move on, past that, right? So these are kind of the two main things you want to be doing. You want to be doing daily meetings to start, eventually weekly meetings, and you want to make sure that time tracking is good. Now, the other thing that you want to do, and this is not for people that are just hiring their first VA, for people that are, much further along in the process, you want to start building out a core, mission and principles, okay? And the reason why this is so important, you might have seen this on company websites, it's like, our mission is to help people and do da-da-da-da, right? The reason why this is important is, first of all, most companies don't do it correctly. And the companies that do it correctly, what they're able to do is they're able to convey really, really easily and simply to anyone, whether they just started working with that company or been with them for years, what the point of the company is. And, for a lot of us, when we're starting out, the point of the company is to make money for you. But if you're an A player and someone's offering you a job and they're like, yeah, the whole point of the company is for me to make money. You're like, well, I don't really care about you. Like, I just met you. I want to go somewhere where I can make money, but more importantly, I can actually make a difference. Because A players, they want to make a difference. They want to help people. They want to produce stuff for society. They want to make society a better place. So that's why it's so important that you have a core principle. You can point to these principles and say, hey, these are the things that we do at this company. And then when you hire them and when you manage them, you can look at those core principles and say, hey, you're not living up to these core principles. We agreed to this when you joined. What's going on? Like, how can I support you better? What can you do? What do you need to do to change to, make this a better situation, to be the person that you need to be to live up to these core principles that we all have agreed to as a company are going to be the core principles that we live by. This is our standard, right? Versus if you don't have them written down, how do you do that? Okay? So long story short, this is probably more, in the future for most of you guys. If you guys are just trying your first VA, don't worry about that yet, but just know that that's going to be coming up at some point, okay? So with that being said, hopefully you guys have enjoyed this video. If you guys did and you want that customized one-on-one plan of how to scale and you want to learn more about Scale Master, where we literally do this night and day, you get to work with me one-on-one personally to actually build this stuff out with you. Click that link down below, watch that short 15-minute free training, and then book a free one-on-one call with my team and with my right-hand guy, John, specifically, where he will go through exact strategies that make sense for you and whether Scale Master even makes sense. And if it does, he'll invite you to join. And if you want to join there, awesome. If not, no worries at all. At least you have a plan to scale, right? So with that being said, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Again, if you guys have enjoyed this video, you guys want more of this, book a call down below at that link down below. It's completely for free. And of course, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and the notification bell for when part 4 comes out next week. And until then, I will see you then.